Xiangwu tiredly remarks how hard it is to commute daily to college when Hanho arrives behind him and starts mocking him for being so weak despite just having finished his military service, but Xiangwu shuts him up with a quick retort. As they're slowly walking towards their college, Hanho frighteningly points above the main building and says that there was a huge 99 hovering in midair, but it disappeared once it hit 100. Xiangwu disbelievingly tells him he's been drinking too much these days and rushes towards his class. As he's sleepily looking at his professor rambling away, a blue screen suddenly pops up in front of him and asks him to choose a class. He shockingly looks around the room and sees that it's not just him. As the screen starts a countdown for 15 seconds, he hurriedly chooses a class with the most stars and becomes a Necromancer, and another boy chooses the warrior class. Suddenly, a goblin crashes in and brutally stabs a boy to death before rounding on Xiangwu. As the goblin approaches him, he takes a chair and continually smashes the goblin with it. Once it's died, a message pops up on the screen saying that he's received 10 gold. Suddenly the goblin's body starts burning in bright blue flames. Shocked, Xiangwu turns around to see the skeleton of the goblin bowing to him, implying that his Necromancer class lets him summon the dead back to life. A pair of goblins rushes into the class, so Xiangwu tries to test his skill and tells his minion to kill them, but as the three creatures is fighting, one of them takes out his minion's arm, so he steps in and helps the minion by beating up the goblins with a chair before the minion finishes them off. Once they're done, he summons the dead goblins as well and reaches his current limit for summoned creatures. As the others start to worry about how they're going to survive, he looks at the city's ruined state from a window and wonders if this is happening across the planet. As all of them get out of the classroom, they encounter a horde of goblins, so he stays behind to kill them while the others get away. While fighting, the goblins are able to take out one of his minions before they get killed, as he receives all the gold from defeating the goblins. He levels up and gets a random skill that increases his limit for summoning undeads to 30, so he summons the other dead ones as well and decides to slowly make his way out by letting the minions lead for now. As he goes down the stairs, he runs into Hanho, who he finds out has chosen the rogue class, which only has 1 star. They proceed together and face a horde of goblins and a large chief goblin. As the fighting starts, Xiangwu uses an effect that weakens the enemy goblins, but when the chief uses a skill that drives the fear away and strengthens the goblins, he uses one of his minions to cut its arm down, rendering the skill useless and helping them defeat the horde. Once they're done, he takes the wild spirit bracelet and a tall spear that the goblins were carrying before turning them all into minions. Xiangwu and Hanho continue to the ground floor where they see Jinseok, a bully and someone who harasses women, clutching a shield. They try to get out but see a screen on the gate saying that they need to defeat the boss in 2 hours to proceed further, so they decide to go battle the goblins headed towards their way, but Jinseok stops them, saying that they need to wait for the police or the military to come rescue them. When Xiangwu realizes that there's no use talking to him, he goes ahead alone to face the goblins and activates an ability called Death Scent, which reduces the enemy's power by 30%. Xiangwu boldly faces the goblins and starts fighting them while making sure to display the full use of his powers to the people so that they can trust him. After seeing him fight, the people start thinking of him as a strong contender, so he gathers them in a room and asks them to go with him to the roof so that they can defeat the boss monster and get out of the building. Almost all of them unwillingly look at each other, but a strong-looking girl called Jizoyun, who's from the Tiger Hunter class, agrees to join him. As he, Hanho, and the girl make their way over to the roof, they run into a horde of goblins, most of whom she is easily able to kill with a slash of her sword. When they reach the top floor, they see a heavily injured professor who sadly tells Xiangwu that all his students died because of his mistake and tells him to not go to the roof before passing away. As Xiangwu depressingly looks at the professor's dead face, a screen pops up telling him that he can choose whether or not he wants to avenge the professor, and that his decision will affect his destiny. Steeling himself, Xiangwu angrily gets up and the three head to the roof. They enter the roof and see a large horde of goblins prowling it, so Xiangwu summons all his minions and activates the Wild Berserker skill using the Wild Spirit Bracelet. While he uses the spear and his minions to fight and Jizoyun uses her sword, Hanho keeps dodging the goblins until he desperately throws his knife at one and aims straight at its head. Remembering that he was good at aiming, he takes out all his knives and starts fighting the goblins with them. Suddenly, the boss monster, the goblin captain, appears before them, so they kill all the goblins before Xiangwu resurrects them and uses their help to fight against it. As the captain tries to attack Hanho, Jizo rushes at him from behind and is able to finally injure it, but it still easily defeats all the minions save for 2. Just as Xiangwu reaches his mana limit, he notices 2 swords lying near him and concludes that he just needs one perfect hit to take the captain down. Xiangwu grabs the swords and makes 2 of his minions attack the captain before throwing one of the swords to the only one alive. When it takes it, the synergy effect is activated due to 3 people using swords at the same time. When they're ready, Jizo, Xiangwu and the minion attack the captain from different sides, and when it tries to block, Hanho stops it with his throwing knives. Xiangwu lands the first hit, Jizo lands the second one, and while it's disarmed, the minion rushes forward to land the final hit. Thinking that it won't be able to survive after attacking, Xiangwu thanks it since it was his first ever minion, but after it slashes the captain and kills it, it lands in front of him safe and sound. Suddenly, a bright blue mark shows up on the minion's head and a screen tells Xiangwu that it's become an elite goblin skeleton. Once they're done, Xiangwu gains the ability to create weapons out of bones, Hanho receives a rogue's hood essential for stealth, and Jizo gets a fire whetstone, capable of engulfing her sword in flames in battle. As they reach the ground floor, they see Jinseok arguing with a man and telling them that Xiangwu got killed, but he falls to the ground in fright when he sees the goblin skeleton. As Hanho, Jizo and Xiangwu open the doors and step outside, he calmly tells Jinseok that he looks pathetic. As the 3 go outside, they spot numerous corpses lying on the streets but don't encounter any monsters, so they call everyone out before Hanho spots a group of people nearby. They approach them and see that they're holding weapons, but Jinseok recognizes one of them as the student council president, Disong, and whispers something in his ear. After hearing him, Disong tells Xiangwu to kill all his summoned monsters or else they won't let him into their group, but Jizo steps in front of him and says that he's got no right to order anyone around and exposes him in front of the others for scheming unlawful fees through the student festival. Before she can say anything else, he quickly stops her with a vein pulsing in his temple and says that he'll let them go. After Xiangwu, Jizo and Hanho go away, she tells them that Dejiang took advantage of one of her juniors, which is why she hates him so much. They decide to take a path going through the hills to escape the monsters, but soon find themselves face to face with an orc. The orc angrily leaps towards them. Xiangwu and Hanho are able to dodge in time. Jizo tries to block it with her sword, but the orc heavily strikes her before rounding on the elite goblin skeleton that with his upgraded powers is able to effectively slash its shoulder. Xiangwu tells Jizo to get on stable ground and to follow the plan since the skeletons can be used as sacrifice if necessary. They dash forward before Jizo cuts its leg off and Xiangwu slashes its right arm off before the elite goblin skeleton cuts its head off. Once the orc is killed, Xiangwu tries to summon it but can't because of it being a mid-tier monster, so he creates clubs with its bones and gives them to all the skeletons and Jizo before lending the elite goblin skeleton's sword to Hanho. They walk on and see a barrier blocking their path and a screen saying that they need to defeat the boss monster to exit the area. When they see a horde of 5 orcs coming their way, Xiangwu has an idea and says that they should set a trap for the orcs. Hanho stands at the edge of the barrier and gets the orcs to rush at him, but when they do, they collide with the wall, and the skeletons, Xiangwu and Jizo ambush them all at once. After they've killed all the orcs, Xiangwu's limit of summons at a time increases to 7. Hanho gets a new skill that enables him to use a dagger at tremendous speeds and Jizo's strength increases by 2. Later, they see a pack of orcs ruthlessly striking a van full of people to get at them. Seeing their pitiful condition, Xiangwu comes up with a plan and crashes a large car filled with skeletons into the pack before attacking them at once. Once they've killed the beasts, Xiangwu tries to get the frightened people to come out, after which the people show him a machine that gives you items in exchange for gold. When he turns it on, the machine asks him to choose a roulette option, bronze, silver or gold. Xiangwu decides to use the unlimited roulette ticket he got after defeating the goblin chief and chooses the gold option. After it stops rolling, it lands on first place and he receives a legendary class mysterious blue sphere called Tear of the Sea Spirit. Once he's done that, he chooses the silver option with his available coins and receives a Vanguard's shield. Jizo gets a red sword called the Leader of the Expedition Force and Hanho gets a potion bundle. Once they've taken their items, they decide to go help Dejiang and his group since they might be in trouble, and this time enter the battlefield by running down orcs with the huge van. They stop the vehicle and tell them all to get on, but when Dejiang and the others approach him, he denies them entry, saying that they were thinking of saving themselves and abandoning everyone else. When he indirectly insists, Xiangwu makes him take his chainmail off before entering. As they're driving, Xiangwu receives a notification saying that he can summon mid-tier monsters now. A while later, Hanho tells him that they're going to need more space if they want to keep rescuing people, but he denies, saying that they're just going to be fighting the Orc Lord now to get past this round. He turns towards the people and tells them that they're going to have to face the Orc Lord head-on before he gets even stronger, but the already injured citizens are not excited at the prospect, because of which adverse effects on their stats start happening. So Xiangwu quiets them down and says that he'll beat the Orc Lord alone. Hearing this, all the people start to doubt his sanity, but he stops them all and turns down Hanho and Jizo's continued protests before stopping the van and heading towards the battleground. Seeing the pack, he summons all of his skeletons and unleashes them on the beasts. Once they've defeated them, they head towards the mid-level boss, who proves to be too much for them. So Xiangwu summons all the orcs' corpses that start fighting the other beasts. As Xiangwu defeats all the orcs and receives another roulette ticket, Dijiang and his lackeys try to join in the battle, but a few of the remaining orcs retreat and take them as hostages. He goes back to the bus and takes Hanho, Jizo and everyone else who volunteered to the orcs base, where the beasts are brutally torturing the hostages. As they enter the dark warehouse, Jinseok desperately asks Xiangwu to save him. Seeing the hostages' pitiful state, Xiangwu starts to attack, but as soon as they get close, the orcs rip off Jinseok's head. Shocked and angered, the attackers suddenly stop short before the junior black magician orc chief summons a poisonous gas that makes all the people fall unconscious. Hanho fortunately takes an antidote from the potions bundle and tells Xiangwu to take one, but he tells him to give it Jizo instead. As Xiangwu blissfully feels his mana, already enhanced from the teardrop of the sea, increase even more by the gas, he unveils the full power of his necromancy and lets it all out on the orcs as they frighteningly run from him. Xiangwu unleashes the full might of his current powers and is able to easily defeat all the wild orcs that try to resist from his undeads. As the onlookers gaze at him in awe, he covers himself in a powerful bright blue armor. As the Orc Lord wildly tries to attack him as a last-ditch effort, he summons his elite goblin skeleton that he's now named Righty, who uses the synergy effect to slash through the orc's entire body and kill him. As the Orc Lord dies, Xiangwu notices a legendary class item, the Devil's Bloodstone, in its mouth. He picks it up and after thinking for a moment absorbs it. Once they've killed the orcs, everyone happily rushes out of the barrier, and Xiangwu realizes that he's become the strongest and doesn't need the help of others anymore. As one of the buses departs for the nearest army base, a pack of colossal wyverns come flying through the city and easily devour it in the span of a few seconds. Seeing the horrific sight before him, Xiangwu realizes that he was wrong. He isn't the strongest, but he can become stronger. He boldly gets up with Hanho and Jizo and they walk towards the oncoming horde of monsters as a screen pops up stating that the tutorial is complete. Hanho and Xiangwu easily clear out a building filled with goblins and head outside to join Jizo, where he announces that they won't be hunting goblins anymore since they're small fry and offer little god. As they slowly make their way across the vicinity, they run into an area filled with military vehicles and meet an subordinate and his officer who's been injured in his leg. Xiangwu offers him a potion in exchange for some valuable information, so the officer tells them that there's a large QR code down the street and through scanning it, they'll be able to download an application that can be used to communicate with other players. They thank him and scan the QR code later, which shows Xiangwu a post of a person saying that they're residing in a nearby park and are at level 8, so anyone close to that area can contact them. Even though he's suspicious since posting requires 1,000 coins, Xiangwu decides to head over to the park, but once he's nearby, the user deletes a comment and states that it was some random bullshit before telling them to be careful on their way to the park. A father tries to desperately save his daughter from an oncoming horde of goblins, but gets swallowed by the sheer amount of them and is about to get killed when Xiangwu, Hanho, and Jizo defeat all the goblins and give him a portion of their food. They spot a few goblins running down a set of stairs and start suspecting it to be a dungeon, as they debate whether or not they should go inside. The man stops and tells them to not go inside since he's heard that there's a strong monster there. Overjoyed at the prospect of finally meeting a strong opponent, the three head inside the dungeon. Later, they're hurriedly running inside the dungeon when Hanho spots a few stray slimes, so Xiangwu dispatches some of his minions that easily take care of them. They finally run into the Elder Slime and start attacking it with Xiangwu's minions since it can't affect bones, so they are able to easily dispose of it. Once they're done, Hanho points out that the people from before who invited players to a park have been continually deleting others' comments. Later, a few rough-looking men are conversing about how the easiest ways to get money in this world is by luring and killing other players. Suddenly, one of them doubles over with pain and comes face to face with monstrous-looking man who says that he needs people like him working for him. Meanwhile, Xiangwu gravely asks Hanho if he'd be able to kill a person if the times